In just 4 states, we've identified 250,000 non-citizens registered to vote in California, and Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Nevada.
America, that's not a rumor. That's not a meme. That is the Secretary of Homeland Security at a federal podium reading numbers off a document with his name attached to it. 250,000 non-citizens registered in 4 states. You would think every elected official in this country, Republican, Democrat, it doesn't even matter, would want to check verified or either confirmed or knock it out next week. Instead, the biggest organizing effort happening in Democrat politics right now has nothing to do with that number at all.
That's why we're calling for 100 days of mobilization and 1,000 marches to the polls during early voting. We need to march into states to the polls.
What is up, guys? Tyson Dela Cruz here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. Let me get the actual numbers straight because there are a total of 3 of them, and I'm not going to smash them together into one scary headline here. Each of them stands alone.
We also worked with proactive states to identify 28,000 non-citizens on their voter rolls, plus 400,000 individuals that are still registered to vote that are deceased. Now, these 23 states, they proactively worked with us on the SAVE program.
Number 1, 250,000 non-citizens found registered in 4 states that did not hand over their voter rolls voluntarily. DHS said they pulled this from public record. Number 2 here, you guys, 28,000, a separate number, found in a state that didn't cooperate willingly with something called the SAVE program. The SAVE program, that stands for Systematic Alien Verification for Entitlements. It is a federal system that checks the names against immigration status. 23 states used it without fighting. And number 3, 400,000 people confirmed dead. Dead, you guys, and still sitting on the voter rolls across the country. 23 states checked their own voter rolls with absolutely no drama. 27, they didn't. If your voter file has nothing to hide, running a federal cross-check against it costs you an afternoon and buys you a headline that says, "We checked it out, we're clean, squeaky clean." Refuse to checking it is a choice. Somebody in 27 different state capitals made that choice on purpose. Georgia's Fulton County is where this actually got tested in real time, an investigation.
And we also know, according to reports, that the FBI reassigned analysts and specialists, about 260 of them, to really research some of the details in those boxes. About 260 boxes were retrieved from that election office, and that's something that is really highly unusual to see the federal government really investigating local authorities in elections where courts have said there was no wrongdoing or widespread fraud.
260 federal analysis, 260 boxes pulled directly from the county elections office. The chairperson of that county's board commission was asked on camera, you guys, what he expected to find in them.
Well, I know they're not going to find anything, but that doesn't matter. They can throw stuff up against the wall. If something sticks, it sticks. Or they can make up something.
He didn't say, go ahead and let them look. We have nothing to hide. We'll be clear next week. He assumed guilt on the investigation part before a single box was even opened. That's not confidence in your own system here, you guys. That is a man who's been checked before and doesn't want to be checked again. I'm going to be absolutely straight with you guys here because this is exactly where my side usually stops kind of being careful, and I'm not going to do that.
And the heavily redacted documents by the White House don't actually appear to back up those claims. In one instance, Trump claiming his administration found more than 250,000 non-citizens on the voter rolls. But the documents don't show exactly how they got those numbers. And at no point did the president prove people cast ballots who shouldn't have.
For those of you that aren't familiar with it, redacted means basically blacked out, sections that the public can't see. That reporting is accurate, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. Nobody outside the administration can independently verify exactly how the 250,000 figure was built outright. And here's the honest gap here. Registering is not the same crime as a crime vote. Nobody has proven a single illegal ballot was cast from a specific batch of names. But you know, I know these things happen, right? That's real, and I'm not going to close the gap for you with volume here. Here is what does not get resolved by that particular gap. If the number is wrong, the fastest way to prove the wrongness is transparency. Hand over the file, run the check, publish the result. Refusing to look, in my opinion, is not proof of innocence. It is just refusing to look because you might actually find something. And here's the piece that nobody connected because it explains why this fight is stuck exactly where it's at.
If states want the grant funding, to recap, they must secure the elections. The machines had to be secured, and that your voter registration list needs to be scrubbed.
Even threatening criminal penalties.
If the election officials, once we gave them the information they need to secure their elections, and they chose not to, then those individuals can also be held accountable by fines, by penalties, and even, depending on how far it goes, prison time.
Read the mechanism carefully. It is grant funding, money that the federal government, you guys, sends states for election administration. Comply, you get to keep the money. You get to keep the moolah. Refusing to scrub the rolls, you lose the money. You lose the moolah. That is leverage right now that exists right now, as of today, without a single new law. But here's the part that stops it from going any further and moving along. This is the whole push that's tied to something called the Save America Act. We've heard about it. You're hearing it in the news a lot. And that bill currently does not have the votes in Senate. It needs 60. It doesn't have 60. Every threat of the fines and prison time for noncompliance officials lives inside the bill that currently is slow moving. So what you actually have is a federal government that found a specific number, built an enforcement mechanism around that number, and then discovered the legislative math wasn't there to actually finish the job. The states that refuse to cooperate know the math as well as anybody in Washington does. And guys, do me a favor and go back and watch every single Democratic official on this particular topic. Not one of them, not a single one of them says the number of 250,000 out loud and then walks through why it's wrong or offers a state level audit to disapprove it publicly. They call it a lie, a sham, just to get the headlines. Again, performance theater. They call it an intimidation tactic. They call the letters from DHS a political stunt.
Because Republicans are strategically targeting both student voters and also Black and brown communities across North Carolina to demoralize and disenfranchise voters in these communities that have access right now to these polling locations.
That entire clip is about early voting hours, Sunday voting at church, polling locations near universities, real issues actually worth debating. Zero, absolutely zero words about non-citizens on the rolls. Zero words about the 250,000. Barber called for 1,000 marches, 100 days of mobilization, an entire movement built around the system to protect access to voting. And the one documented number that would either clear the system's name or expose the actual problem got no marches, no mobilization, no press conferences demanding for independent audits to settle it one way or another. If you actually believe that your voter rolls are clean, the fastest way, you guys, is to open them and to show it. Instead, the energy goes into fighting over Tuesday morning hours while that number could be vindicated or damn the whole system just sits there unopened, unanswered. Here's where this connects to something that you deal with every single week of your life. To become a legal citizen of the United States, you sit in an interview, you pass a civics test with 100 possible questions. Most Americans could pass it super easy. You submit fingerprints, you wait years, and sometimes over a decade. And get this, you guys, to get a library card, guess what you need? You need a photo ID. To buy Sudafed at the Walgreens, guess what you need? You need a photo ID. to board a domestic flight to go from, Miami to New York, rent an apartment, open up a checking account, pick up a prescription. Guess what you need? You need an ID every single time, no exceptions, no outrage. One transaction in American life where a big chunk of political class insists that ID somehow is oppressive to the ballot box. At least in my opinion, if a person genuinely cannot manage to become a citizen through the legal process or cannot manage to walk into a DMV or get a state issued ID, which is most of the time free in a lot of states for low income residents, the problem was never an ID requirement. That's not a systematic barrier like everybody's saying. That is a personal responsibility question. And dressing it up as voter suppression doesn't change what it actually is. And go check it for yourself, you guys. Don't take my word for it. Walk into any barbershop, any union hall, any diner with a working class Black or Hispanic neighborhood in this country and ask the people straight up whether you should prove who you are before you cast your vote. Poll after poll after poll shows that a large majority of Black and Hispanic voters support voter ID. You already know what the answer is going to be before you finish the question. Common sense. Common sense doesn't check a party registration card before it actually answers the question. The Democrats fighting hardest against verification are protecting the communities that they quote unquote claim to speak for. They're protecting the mess. Murky rolls are easier to control than the cleaner rolls. Confused systems are easy to work than transparent ones. That's not a conspiracy. We already know what's happening. That is who benefits when nobody is allowed to actually check the math. America, here's the verdict. The Secretary of Homeland Security put a number on record, and that number is 250,000 non-citizen registered voters across 4 states, a separate 28,000 in states that cooperated. 400,000 dead voters are still on the voter rolls. Fulton County's own commissioner predicted the federal investigation into his county that they would find nothing and said it wouldn't stop them anyways. The enforcement mechanism tying grant money to cooperation is absolutely real and it's much needed. The bill would add prison time for officials who refuse, doesn't have a Senate vote to pass it yet. The biggest voter mobilization effort in Democratic politics right now has nothing to do with any of it. 100 days, 1,000 marches, zero, absolutely zero words about the illegals registered to vote. You don't march for transparency that you're afraid of. Let me know what you think about this. Drop it down in the comment section down below. Smash the like button if you kindly would. Share, subscribe, and as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.